Most people watch a football game and they think, oh, that was a great play. There's a good chance that 50 or 60% of it was messed up in some capacity. What you develop is improvisational skills. This is wrong, but how can I fix it? But you have like seconds to fix it.
Welcome to RunRate. Today we're joined by Tiki Barber. Tiki spent 10 seasons with the New York Giants, retired as one of the most productive running backs in NFL history, and helped define an era of Giants football. But what makes Tiki particularly interesting for this conversation is what happened after football. Since retiring, he's built a successful second career across media, broadcasting, and business, navigating a transition that many elite athletes struggle to make. We're also doing something we love doing today, something that we want to do more of here on RunRate. We have one of our former guests back as co-host, so they can unpack and double down on topics that we want to dig in on. Joining me as co-host today, we have Olympic gold medalist Alex Ferreira. Alex was a recent guest on RunRate, and we're excited to have him back, this time on the other side of the table. And Alex's uniquely interesting position for this conversation, he just retired from Olympic competition after winning Olympic gold and is actively thinking about what comes next. I don't think, Alex, you're confirmed on full retirement, just Olympic retirement, yes?
That's correct.
That is correct. Okay. So today we'll talk a little bit about greatness. We'll talk about preparation. We'll talk about reinvention, building a second act, all that good stuff. So really appreciate you two joining. Great to have both of you here.
Hey, thank you for having me, Kyle. It's good to see you. It's been a lot of years, but you look the same. And Alex, congratulations, dude. That's awesome. Obviously on the retirement, but more importantly on the Olympic successes that you've had. Back in the day, I wanted to be an Olympian, but I decided to be a football player. And so I lost all my speed and jumping ability in track and field.
Okay. Well, you made up for it in your other career.
Yeah, you made up for it.
I did okay,
Exactly.
but that Olympic dream is kind of awesome for those that lived it and had success. So congrats.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Good to see you, Tiki. You're looking good as well. Not a day over the last time I saw you.
Yeah,
keeping
except
fit.
I'm now 16 years older. No, I'm not that many years. Probably like 13 years older.
You and I were chatting this morning about, I had dinner with an old, I would say arch enemy of yours, I guess, or at least a guy across the field putting some tough hits on you, Ray Lewis.
It's funny you brought that up this morning, Kyle.
Yeah.
We had a caller call us today on my radio show and asked me out of nowhere about my Super Bowl 35 experience, which was against the Baltimore Ravens and Ray Lewis. And I've never rewatched that game, but it's still vivid in my mind how dominant and painful he was to play against, because he was ridiculous as an athlete.
He's a beast. He's kept himself in good shape. Maybe we'll be lucky, Tika. We'll get you back on as a co-host. We'll bring Ray on. We can
I'd love that.
out.
I'd love that.
So part of the reason, Tika, I want to bring you on, Alex and I went through his career, which has been incredible. We talked about, for him, what's next. And I think, I've known you a long time, 10 plus years, been super impressed with what you've built off the field. But I think we should start with, on the field and give a little bit of color, parallel to the conversation that we had with Alex. Most people know you for your career, for the end of the story, right? NFL star, three-time Pro Bowler, one of the greatest of all time. But, as you were coming up, what did that actually look like? Were you the best athlete in the room growing up? Was it obvious that you were going to be a breakout, or?
No, what's funny, Kyle and Alex? Yeah. I wasn't the best athlete in the room because I have an identical twin brother who is ridiculous as an athlete and played 6 more years longer than I did, which I always quantify as 6 more years of game checks in the NFL, and that's a big deal. He won a Super Bowl, which I didn't, in 2002. It was the 2003 Super Bowl. And now he's in the Hall of Fame. So athletically, I'm bested by the guy I shared a womb with. But just, I don't even know, anecdotally or just logistically, he was always the better athlete. Fast. I was always faster, stronger, smarter. but he could do complex athletic things, and I could just do like the rote things. Be strong, be fast, be physical, and it helped him. But it also helped me because it drove me to always want to be like him. I was mentioning to Alex about our track and field dreams. Rondé was a pretty good high school hurdler. He was a national champion indoor, and every time he would do something, I'd see it and be like, all right, now I got to win. And so it drove me. And that was not just in high school, that carried through to college, it carried through to the NFL. So I've always had this colleague or inspiration that was right next to me. And
Sure.
I honestly believe it was a big reason I had success, because I was always competing. No matter what I was doing, I was always competing. And so he pushed me in a lot of ways. But other than him, I was usually the best athlete.
It's got to be tough growing up. I mean, it sounds like you all did the same sports. I could imagine
Right.
twins going into different sports to kind of charge their own path. So you two each did the same sports and competed directly?
Yeah, we never wanted to be apart. I mean, when you have an identical twin, not those fake fraternal twins. I can only say that because I have fraternal twins. I have twin daughters that are 16. So it's just, I think we kind of had the same influences from my mom, from friends around us, and so we always gravitated doing things together. And but we found our different lanes in those similar sports. Like when we wrestled, he would go down 3 or 4 pounds and wrestle at a lower weight. When we ran track, he was a hurdler. I was a long jumper and a sprinter. When we played football, I always played offense. He did a little bit of offense, but he was mostly a defensive player. So we were always together, but never like competing against each other. There was always a positive, never a zero-sum game type thing. And so
Sure.
it made us competitive, but not hateful. Like there wasn't jealousy. It was more, well, good job. You sucked. Be better. And then we can be on the same page. So it worked. And it was, it's not quite that way anymore because we're over 50 now and doing different
Sure.
things. But it was one of the big catalysts for me being as good as I was at everything I did, because he was always there. And it developed a relationship that is as strong today as it was when we were 7 years old.
That's amazing.
Plus,
was that
he's your older brother. You want to
he's
beat
your
him
older
out?
brother.
He's the older brother, right?
Yeah, he was the older brother by 7 minutes. I always say that was intentional because I kicked him out. and so we have this fun rivalry. I think we only got in one fight. One real fight. We fought all the time, but like one real fight that got physical, and I broke my wrist. I've had one surgery in my career, and I had this little tiny bone in my wrist and called an ulnar navicular bone. And I punched him like right in the stomach, and he had these rock hard abs when he was 16. And I was like, man, that hurt. And he's like, you all right? Everything all right? I'm like, I don't know. That was like, something's wrong. And so we went to the doctor. They're like, oh, you just got a sprain. 2 years later, I'm at the University of Virginia, and I get an x-ray, and the doctor's like, you know what? Your wrist is broken. So we stopped fighting at that point physically, but we kept our competitive nature together all the time.
I mean, when you've got
brothers, did you have brothers, Alex?
Now I've got one younger sister, and she doesn't have abs of steel like your brother. So, lucky for me.
Right.
And Alex, it sounds like your parents were supportive, but not pushing you into it. You know, Tiki, for you, you guys had each other driving each other, but was there a push down from the parents? Usually elite athletes have some level of push from the parents.
Kind of. It was, for us, it was almost by knowing what my father did. So growing up, my mom and dad were divorced when we were 2 or 3 years old, and we didn't have a relationship with him, but we knew about him. He was a football star at Virginia Tech, and he had tons of success. And growing up in Roanoke, which is only about 40 minutes away from Tech, all we heard about was Virginia Tech football and James Barber, JB, as they called him. And so I remember having his jersey, but not having a relationship with him. It was weird. But it was also kind of motivating because we wanted to be good like he was, even though we didn't know him. But I think it was genetic. I mean, Alex, you know this. Your dad was a soccer player. Your mom was a good athlete. Like genetics comes from within, and there's just this innate, I don't know, want to that's driven by your parents, even if they're not directly saying, go do this, go do this, go do this. Like we've seen tons of successes from dads. Jalen Brunson, who just won the NBA championship. Like we've seen his dad who played in the NBA and drove him. We've seen all these videos of them practicing on these janky courts, and all those things matter. But I don't think there's a right or wrong way for parents to raise their kids to be good athletes. I think a lot of it, which Alex I'm sure talked about and can attest to, comes just from who you are, like what the genes and the athleticism and the muscular structure that your parents gave you without you even realizing it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
As you were talking, Tiki, it felt like you and I had a lot in common. I used to wrestle. I used to run track. I didn't have quite the level though. My parents were. The athletic gene was missing. I was there. I was an okay wrestler. And I went to sectionals like super early on, 9th grade. And then I did break a record. I still hold a pole vaulting record at my high school.
Do you really? Tiki. Oh, so you're brave then, dude. I would never do that. I would never do what you do either, Alex. Like that freestyle.
What Alex does is next level. That's insane.
No doubt.
Well, that's a two-way street. I wouldn't do what you guys do. But speaking of your dad and Virginia Tech football, when did you realize that football could be a future for you? Because obviously your dad's a star. Your brother's an amazing athlete. When did that dawn upon yourself?
I don't think we fully realized we'd be stars in the game. We knew it was a way for us to go to college. Like my mom made $28,000 for her whole life when we were growing up. So she wasn't paying for us to go to college. And I remember our guidance counselors and our coaches telling us as we were coming up through high school, if you guys keep grinding at this, you can get a scholarship and you go to whatever college you want for free. And it wasn't motivating, but it was like, all right, that's a way to get to college. And so I think when we went to Virginia, we chose it purposefully because we were both good students and we were looking at our future. Like, in fact, I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid. You're too young for this, Alex, but I was a Challenger baby. The Challenger space shuttle exploded. And right around that time, I was in my impressionable years, 11 years old. And everybody was obsessed with this. And we watched it. We watched it in school. I remember watching it, and all the teachers like running out of the room because Sandra McCullough was on the aircraft, and they were all crying, and we were like traumatized by it. But after that, like a year or so later, space camps became a huge thing. I don't think they're a big thing as much anymore, but everybody wanted to go to space camps, and everybody was going to space camps, and we couldn't afford it, obviously. And so my mom was like, well, just, be an astronaut. I was like, all right, I want to be an astronaut. And so for years, I wanted to be an astronaut. And she would always tell me, but you got to be a good student. You got to go get an engineering degree. You got to go to a good school. You got to go, probably be in the military, work for NASA. And so we chose Virginia because they had a really good engineering program. And I started out in the engineering school, but playing football and trying to get an engineering degree was daunting sleep-wise. Like I was so sleep deprived that first year that I switched over to the business school, the McIntyre School of Commerce, which is more collaborative at UVA. Sure. And so it freed up time. I didn't become a good football player. Like you could play at the next level in the NFL until my third year. Before that, I was just trying to be whatever I could be academically. And it kind of happened because of an opportunity. We had a running back who was a year older than me. His name was Kevin Brooks. He got hurt in our preseason. He strained his hamstring, and we played our first game against the University of Michigan, and he couldn't start. And so I ended up starting that game. This is my third year now, and I rushed for 180 yards. We almost beat Michigan in the big house. I had this big long touchdown run, and I was like, man. This is Michigan at that time was the best of the best. Like they were the team.
They are now too.
Like, maybe I can compete with the best. And so from that point on is when I felt like I was going to be an NFL player, and this dream of becoming an astronaut was probably going to have to go to the wayside. It took me a while. I think Rondé knew earlier. Rondé was ACC Rookie of the Year right when he first started. Like a couple years prior, he was just good. Because he's a better athlete. He picked it up much quicker than I did. And he didn't have to put on size. We came out of high school at like 172 pounds or something like that. And he played most of his career, including in the NFL, under 180. So he was naturally the same person.
Wow.
I had to put on like 20 pounds. And I remember my coach coming to you saying, you could be a good kick returner and do some specialty stuff, but if you want to be a running back, you got to weigh over 200 pounds. And so those first couple of years, it was just eat, lift, like get strong and powerful and durable. And when I finally found my way, I was ready for it. And when I got that opportunity, I was ready for it. And that's when football started to become the dream as opposed to whatever else, athletically or professionally I was thinking about. So I was late to thinking I wanted to be an NFL player.
That's interesting. I always felt like I was a late bloomer as well, late to the party too.
Yeah. But your dad was a soccer player?
Yeah, so basically my dad was a professional soccer player. He played for River Plate in Argentina, and similar to American football up here, it's religion down there. It's a big deal.
So he grew up in the States, Alex, and then he was traveling for soccer down in Argentina?
He actually grew up in Argentina, and then he
nice.
was traded to numerous different clubs, and he was going to be traded over to a club in France. And for some reason, the night before, him and his friend went to the airport, and they changed their flights to America. Just on a whim.
That's awesome.
Crazy. He had like $30 in his pocket. He knew one guy, and yeah.
Well, how did you end up in skiing then?
I mean, it's also a crazy story. So my mom, she used to go on family vacations with one of her best friends, and they own a timeshare in Vail. So my mom would go out to Colorado and go skiing on a few trips. And my dad, he started playing for the New York Cosmos, and the doctor for the New York Cosmos was this doctor named Eddie Dechter, and Eddie invited my dad to go out to Vail and go skiing. My dad had never seen snow, and he said, sure, I've never been skiing before, I'll go. And as the story goes, I guess my parents kind of collided into each other on the mountain, and they went to dinner that night. They went to Aspen the next day, and they never left.
Oh, who would have known?
Crazy.
Who would have
Small
known?
world.
The Cosmos, who are now the Red Bulls, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
New York Red Bulls. I'm a Red Bull fan. They're pretty good. Yeah,
absolutely.
They got some good players on that team. Emil Forsberg, who came over internationally, and Julian Hall, who's 18 or 17 or something like that. He's been great. That's funny.
I used to love it when Thierry was on there too.
Right. No, I mean,
back in the day.
He's the best. He's great commentary now as well. But it's crazy how like little subtle things turn you into something that you didn't even like know was possible. Now this is before you were obviously born, but I mean, skiing it's a very, I would assume, nuanced like little community. It's not like, oh, everybody skis, so there's all this talent that could potentially be good at what you do. It's like specialized in a way.
Absolutely. Extremely niche, esoteric, and it's expensive too. There's barriers to get into skiing. It's not like you can just go. You got to buy all the gear and then the ski pass and then the lessons, and all of this adds up, and it's a big commitment. And my parents, I don't know how they did it, but they sacrificed much for me to go far.
That's what good parents do.
That's correct.
Yeah. So Tiki, Alex and I talked a lot about, he and I met in Aspen. He then came skiing with us, and he was doing backflips and crazy shit. And everyone was like, who's this guy? That was fun. Part of what he and I really went deep on and really connected on and ultimately brought him on the pod was he's got a super unique story about kind of how he prepares. He would like go super deep, visualization, manifestation, like every single day, every single move, almost like a script actor,
right?
Like going through but his sport is obviously unique, that it's like super high intensity, and like every turn, every inch matters, every centimeter matters. You know, for you as you were coming up, and then ultimately when you got into the league, did you have anything like that? Was there any rituals, routines kind of before games?
You know, interesting, Kyle. Not really, but I'm gonna get to it in a minute, because my youngest daughters, Brooklyn and Tegan, who are 12 and just turned 10, are competitive cheerleaders. So they do that crazy cheer that you see on television where they're tossing. It's like a very specific routine. And like Alex's runs down the mountain, like you can't mess up. Like a little deduction will cost you points and a potential chance to win. But for me, like football is so chaotic. It's like, I always say this, most people watch a football game and they think, oh, that was a great play. There's a good chance that 50 or 60% of it was messed up in some capacity. but you find a way to overcome it because what you develop is improvisational skills. Like how this is wrong, but how can I fix it? But you have like seconds to fix it. Not even seconds. You have milliseconds to fix it in your mind and hope that the play still works itself out. And so my routines weren't necessarily about me visualizing what I was going to do. It was trying to understand what a defense was trying to do. Like when they see whatever formation we come out in or whatever motion we're doing and they react, what's going to happen next? And so it's always anticipation on what happens next. So I would always spend a lot of time watching film and trying to find examples of teams doing what we would do and see how the defense would react. And it would give me in my mind a competitive advantage. I can give you a specific example because it came from my last regular season game. We played the then Washington Redskins. We were down in DC, which was kind of its hometown for me because I grew up in Southwest Virginia. And I had a bunch of friends from college and high school were there. And we ran a play early in the game. The Washington liked to do these cross dogs. So they'd start 2 linebackers and then they would just switch them. And the reason they would do that is because it would screw up the assignment for the guard and the fullback or whoever was blocking one of those guys. And so we ran this draw early in the game and they switched. And my fullback and my guard went for the same guy. And I was like, and then the one guy who was free just hit me like right in the face. I'm like, dude, what are you guys doing? They're like, no, we're following our rules. I'm like, the rules are messed up. Right. And so we went to the sideline and we ended up talking about what are we going to do if they do that again? And so we changed the rules on the fly. Like, forget what the rules tell you to do. Don't follow your guy. Follow the guy who becomes your guy. And so we ran the same play, I don't know, a quarter later. And the same thing happened. Like they started to do this cross dog and my fullback was right in front of me. I could see it in his mannerisms. He was like, I got to go with this guy. And then at the last second, he corrected and blocked the guy who became his guy. And it cleared a hole for me. I split it, broke a tackle and went 50 yards for a touchdown. And then I get to the sideline and my fullback was like, I hate you. I hate that you're right. And so like what made me good at my job is that I could like improvise on the fly. And I think football is a lot of that. You see some of the best quarterbacks now, like when we see Pat Mahomes, most of the shit that you see him doing it's not designed. They're not drawing up a play. When this happens, you're going to improvise and underhand it and throw it behind your back and do all these other things. It's this ability to see what a defense is doing and then still beat them. It's like backyard football, but it's obviously on a much higher level. And I think I just always had a good ability of processing quickly. I think what allowed me to do that is honestly, it was my academic upbringing, right? And how what I went to school for and my ability to see different, in this case, business cases and understand what was going to change and how we would react to it. And it translates, like it's practice. Like you practice doing those things in other parts of your life. When I became an athlete, they applied. And so I always credit being smart for one of the reasons I was success. I know that's counterintuitive for a physical, brutalistic gladiator type game, but I think some of the best players have that ability. They don't even realize, I think, sometimes that they have it. We call it a football IQ. You could have a ridiculously low IQ, but a high football IQ and be super, super successful.
I mean, work smarter, not harder. Especially in football, you got to retain your health.
Right.
Always.
100%. Availability is the best ability. That's what it's a cliche, but it is so true.
I never knew that everyone was just going by impulse kind of and playing backyard football. I love that. That's so good. The reason I was always visualizing is because in my sport, it's super scary. Like yours, you can take some really heavy hits.
Right.
And that's why I just would have figured you would be doing that. But and it would give me more confidence. So I'm curious, were you nervous before games? Just flying by the seat of your pants at times? Not always, obviously.
Well, I was nervous, but only because the adrenaline hadn't kicked in. Okay. So think about your sport, Alex. If you get like all jacked up and hyped, yeah, let's go, you're going to screw up, right?
I agree.
I agree. You have to be calm. And
sure.
Golf, for instance, it's like, I'm just going to try harder. I want to swing harder. It doesn't work. And so
the ball goes shorter.
100%. And so I think in my sport, I was always seeing like the linebackers and the offensive linemen who had to be brutalistic. Like they were hitting. They had to convince themselves, I got to go throw my 250-pound body into another 230-pound man. And it's going to hurt, but I got to do it. And so you had to jack yourself up. But for me, like my preparation I was always cerebral. Like I had to be. I was always calm in critical and crazy moments. And I would practice that by, or at least prepare for games by going into the training room away from everybody else and like just reading a book or reading a newspaper, the Sunday Times, the Wall Street Journal, or whatever it is, because I didn't want to cloud my mind with the craziness of what was about to happen. Because I knew as soon as I got that first hit, like as soon as someone drilled me, that energy was going to come. You know what I mean? And so it was like, how do I keep myself under emotional control so that when I get into a game and it gets really physical, I can stay emotionally calm. And so it's an interesting little dynamic that it took me a couple of years in the NFL to figure it out. But once I did, I started to get really good. I never felt overwhelmed, nervous until I got that first hit. But after that, I was always dialed in.
Think about it relative to you, Alex. He's got a team. So he's got to rely on team members to do their thing. They got to block the guy. And every time he goes to the huddle, they're just calling a play. Could be play A, could be play B, could be play 36, 45. And he's like, oh. So like that iteration, that ability to do it on the fly and just be calm no matter what, super interesting. Whereas Alex, you'd get dialed, but like your thing was your thing. And it was like you against you, me v me, like you got to do that and do it perfect. Like we were chatting Tiki about his Olympic gold run. And I was like, did you know that was it? And he's like, I know I nailed it. I don't know what the judges are going to do, but like, that all that years and years of preparation culminating, in that moment is pretty surreal.
Yeah. I wonder, Alex, like, because, and this goes back to my girls in cheer, like they're really competing against everybody else, but they're also competing against themselves, right? It's all I can do is do the best that I can do, that I prepared to do. And then it's somebody else is going to judge us. But as long as I do my best, then I put myself in position to win. Like it's almost harder, I think, because it's not let's go head to head and I win, you lose. You know what I mean? It's a different mentality or different, I think, understanding of what success is supposed to be.
Absolutely. I was always like you too. I was always trying to conserve as much energy as possible. I always thought about my body was a nuclear reactor or a Ferrari engine, and it's not ready to go yet. You must chill, because if you go, you don't want to peak too early. If you peak too early, it's over. And then what fun is that?
Right. What's it like? What was the feeling like when you crossed the line, the final?
At the Olympics?
Yeah, at the Olympics.
Oh, best feeling in my entire life. Just sheer jubilation, excited. I'm sure everything that your bro felt winning the Super Bowl as well.
Right.
Just the ultimate prize that you worked so hard for, that I worked so hard for. Everyone has it in their domain, and when you achieve it, it's almost surreal. I still can't believe it sometimes. I'm getting goosebumps.
Part of what I like to do on RunRate in general is just, talk about the pursuit, right? And I think in sports, the pursuit of greatness is such an interesting topic because people see the end result, right? But they don't see all the time and preparation and et cetera that it took both of you to get there. It sounds like, Tiki, from what you've said, in the NFL, physically speaking, you have to be where you need to be for your position. That's kind of table stakes.
Right.
But maybe the ability to be great is actually driven by that real-time iteration, the ability to kind of, as you said, ad lib. Is that what makes great players? Like when you see great players now, or you played against great players back in your playing day, like what's the definition of?
Yeah, I think so. Like look at Saquon Barkley, who was here with the Giants, now he's with the Eagles. I was doing a game for CBS. It was Eagles, and I forget who they were playing, and it doesn't even matter. But he had this play. He came out of the left side. He picked up about 8 to 10 yards. And then he got into this moment where he knew he was stuck. And he was like, all right, I can't go anywhere. I'm either going to go down, or go out of bounds, or take this hit. And he started to like twist, and he's like, oh, this isn't right. And he just jumped, right? Like he started to twist and he just jumped, and he saw the defender coming behind him. He split his legs. The defender went under him.
I think I remember this play.
Right. And he landed and picked up a couple more yards. And I'm just like, dude, like how in the like, what makes you do that? Like what instinct says this is my safest way to avoid contact and to maybe get some more yards? Because my instinct would be to just like cower, take the hit, let's get to the next play. And so that season was great for him. He became one of the few, I think 12th or so in the NFL history to rush for 2,000 yards that season. And it was like week after week after week, he was doing things like that. And so that's not, the play design was perfect, and therefore he had 150 yards in that game. It's not, they blocked it perfectly. That's why he had 150 yards. It was in the moment that mattered, when contact is stopping the play, he improvised. And so I think it's this, and again, I bet if you ask him, he doesn't even remember why he did it, but it's like this instinctual thing that you see great players are able to do. And you see it all the time, right? When a play breaks down or someone has to break a tackle and they find a way to get free, or a quarterback, out of nowhere finds this miraculous throw. Those guys that can think at a high level and save a bad play and sometimes making it into a great play, and they do it consistently, are the ones that we view when history judges them as great. And the part of that that's most important is it's doing it every time. Like, it's not just, he did it in week 2 and you didn't hear from him again until week 15. It was week 2, week 3, week 4, week 8, 9, 10. Like, you do it consistently. It's why when we talk about availability, it's so important. I think one of the things that I took a lot of pride in, and I would like directly say this to my players, my teammates, what you're going to get from me on Sunday. I guarantee I'm going to have a good day. My buddy David Deal, who was my tackle and guard,
remember David Deal,
he would come and grab me and he'd headbutt me, and like, Dave, that hurts. But he would headbutt me and be like, Teak, you can count on me today. And it's like that mentality of always knowing and expecting yourself to be great. Like, if you expect, you are what you are, no matter what you think, right? If you think you're going to be successful, you think you're going to fail, you're probably right. And so, like, convincing yourself that I'm going to be exactly what this team needs me to be is one of the hardest things to do, because this happens in life. It happens in business. It happens in sports. Doubt creeps in, right? And it's like, man, can we do this? I don't know if this is going to work out. And it's sometimes fake confidence that pushes you to do it despite the circumstances. Alex was talking about when Rondé won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. His head coach was John Gruden. And Rondé used to, he would be miming, he would just parrot what John Gruden would say all the time. And I'd hear him talk, and I'd be talking to him, hey, man, how's it going? And he'd be saying all this stuff. I'm like, bro, who the hell are you? Right? But one of the things that John Gruden used to say to him, and this is so profound for football especially, he'd say, gentlemen, today I need some genuine enthusiasm. And if you don't got it, fake it. Right? And it's like, it's little. It's stupid.
Bring it. We got to have it.
It's ridiculous. But it works. Athletes live by these stupid things, these things that people say. And, to the lay person, it's like, they're just being corny. But it's real. I know you know what I mean, Alex. It's real.
You got to be your own little biggest fan every day. Whatever you need to tell yourself to get out there and put your ski boots on or lace up your cleats.
Right.
Do it. Rig the game so you can win.
Right. And it's a mental thing, right? We're mental, emotional beings.
There's so much parallel here, Tiki, to business.
Mm-hmm.
People see the winning company. They see the guy that sold the company, the gal that sold the company. There are so many moments where that company should have failed. Always. Right. And similar to your, analogy on the field, the ability to just not take no for an answer, whether that's a sales opportunity, whether that's a growth opportunity. Some of the folks that you and I have spent time with over the years, their ability to just not take no ever for an answer.
Right.
And then, you know, they end up having repeat success, but there's a reason for it. It's
Right.
that passion, it's that tenacity. They just will not stop. It's kind of, Alex, on our transition topic. You gotta channel that energy. You gotta bring it to the business front in a very similar way. Tiki, when I was thinking about all the people that I could bring on with Alex as a great co-host here, that I thought of you was you, I would say objectively, when I look at the NFL historically, and I'm a pretty big NFL fan, and I'm a Giants fan, you know, I think you shocked a lot of people when you retired on the early side, right? And I wonder, you and I have actually never really gotten into that, but similar with Alex, like he just won a gold. I'm like, guy, why are you stepping back? Like, this is the prime. Like, go for another one. He's like, no, that's it. And so I'd love to unpack, Tiki, like what made you decide to hang up the cleats?
I wonder if it's the same with Alex's decision in mind, because Alex alluded to something a little bit earlier that is so important to success in sports, really in anything. To be a good athlete, to be a great athlete, successful athlete, it is a ton of time commitment on your body, mental, emotional work. It's a ton of time. The mental, emotional side, I could handle. I mean, now I still deal with it now as a dad and as a co-host on WFAN, talking about a million different sports because we have 9 teams in this town. So preparation is the only thing that matters. If you don't prepare, and that's whether you're giving a speech or whether you're preparing a report, like it matters to prepare. And so for me, at the end, the last couple of years of my career, well, let me back up for a second. I became very close with the Giants owners, both of them, Wellington Mara and Bob Tisch. And in 2005, we both knew, we knew that both of them were sick. And we might lose them in that season. And Tom Coughlin, our head coach, came to us at the beginning of the year and said, I want you guys to know that we need to be the team of record for Wellington Mara and Bob Tisch. And so for some of the guys who were younger, didn't have deeper relationships, that was just, it was lip service. It was words. But for me, it meant a lot because of my relationship with them. And so the preparation that I put into that 2005 season, which turned out to be the best season of my career, was all because how can I honor these two, ridiculously huge people in business, for Bob Tisch and then obviously the NFL and Wellington Mara. And it was by being great. And so every bit of preparation that off season was about that. And it wasn't a mistake that I had a great season. They both passed away in that 2005 year. Some of the most emotionally tough moments of my professional career, but I had a great season to honor them. And so after that season, we lost to the Carolina Panthers in the wild card round. We hosted that game, and it was like, what was this all for? Right? This, like, it didn't amount to anything. Like, we had this great season and we fell short, and it was like, do I really want to do this again? Like, do I want to prepare again? And so 2006, I told myself, I'm going to grind. I'm going to, if we couldn't do it last year, I'm going to do it this year. And we had a good season. We barely made the playoffs. We played the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoff game. But way before that, I realized that the grind of deadlifting 400 pounds and, squatting and all of this stuff physically to keep myself at the top shape, I didn't want to do anymore.
And are you taking any time off, Tiki? Like, do you get a couple weeks off, or you're just like full time?
The season would be over early January. By beginning of March, I was back in the gym.
Yeah.
And so I'd have a month or so off, and then I'd be back. I had to be, because I couldn't go to camp out of shape. I couldn't work my way into being 208 pounds or 10 pounds, really. I'd go to camp at. I couldn't do that by just sitting around and saying, all right, I'm good to go. I knew I wouldn't be good. And so after that 2006 season, I just didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted to explore different avenues that I had already started walking on. I always called them parallel paths. I was walking 2 paths at the same time, one in media and one with the NFL. And the media one started to become more attractive. It fit more what I felt like I was going to do for the rest of my life. You got to remember, football players average maybe 4 or 5 years. Running backs, it's probably 3. And so I had a long career, and I was ready to do something else, and I didn't want to prepare. And the last thing I wanted to do, even though I was still under contract, was not be prepared for a season that mattered to all those younger guys. And so I left. I was ready to do something else, and luckily I had a jumping off point that I was ready for.
Had you built up that transition? You kind of said you had a path laid out. It seems like a lot of, and Alex and I talked a little bit about the difference between Olympic sports and some of the more televised sports and kind
Right.
of opportunities that present themselves and what that path looks like. But today, everyone from Tom Brady to, Tony Romo, you get a lot of folks that transition to major
Right.
media jobs. Like
Right.
how does that come together?
So it's easier now because the individual athletes can become brands because of social media, right? You become a national brand because everybody sees you. Obviously, the NFL television contract is massive now, and there's primetime games on Thursday night, on Sunday night, on Monday. You get the international games, which they're not primetime, but they're standalone at 9:30 in the morning. So there's greater opportunities for you to know an athlete, right? When I was playing, and it's crazy because it was only 20 years ago. There weren't that many ways for an NFL athlete who wears a helmet, nobody sees your face, to become a brand. And so I was fortunate that I lived in New York City, and I was able to take advantage of tons of different relationships that I happened to make because not because I played for the Giants, but because I lived in New York City, right?
Yep.
And I was walking in these circles that I didn't belong in, because these are like multi-millionaires and billionaires and all kinds of industries, finance, technology, media, etc. But I was there because I was a football player, right? And so I developed a ton of relationships that allowed me to take that next step. But the reason that I got into media early was because I sucked as a football player. My first couple of years, I wasn't good. I was okay. I mean, I was on the team, but I was just a guy. We call them Jags. I was just a guy. And so one off season, I decided to let me dabble in some media. And so I went and did some work on WFAN doing their overnight show. So this is like 10 to 2 in the morning, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the morning for an NFL player in my off season. And I ended up liking talking about sports and interacting with people. And it just started this second path that I kept walking on. That led to WCBS, which was local CBS News. Then the Yes Network, which is a regional sports network for the Yankees, started a football show. So I did the Yes Network. And then me and Rondé wrote a children's book. And when this children's book, we do a media tour. And on this media tour, one of the stops was Fox and Friends. And so I did this Fox and Friends interview. Brian Kilmeade reached out to me afterwards and was like, man, you were pretty good. You should come back and co-host some days. And so I ended up taking him up on it. And so I co-hosted on Fox and Friends for 2 years. And this was all year long. This was not just, here's one, Tuesday. I would do it every Tuesday for the year. And it created this, Tiki's a media personality. Oh yeah, I know he plays football, but he's also a media personality. And so when I was ready to retire in 2006, it was like there was this network like acquisition of me. Like they were trying to all acquire me. Like, you're gonna go work for Fox, you're gonna work for NBC, you're gonna work for CBS. Where are you gonna go? And ultimately, I chose to go to the Today Show because it would keep me local. I had young kids. They had a new football show called Football Night in America, and so leaving the field, I transitioned right into a major network job the hard way. It wasn't like Tom Brady, who, when he was still playing, at a $37 million a year contract waiting for him because he was a superstar. It was, I worked my way through it. And in some ways, it gave me to the media folks a credibility that's hard to earn. Right? You have to earn that. It's just like you have to earn success in the NFL. You have to earn it in media as well. And it's been my career for the last 19, 20 years.
Love it.
Wow. That is unreal.
But it was intentional. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't like, oh, Tiki's nice. And, it'll be fun to have a giant. It was work to get there. Struggles, ups and downs in that, just like there's struggles and ups and downs in sports. But ultimately, I found my little path that has become my career for twice as long as I played in the NFL.
When did you know it was time to move on, or when do you know it's going to be time to move on again from where you're at now?
Yeah, I think that the challenge that a lot of people make in thinking about transition is the fear of it. Because if you are transitioning from something that you've been very successful at into something that is unknown, especially because you're not 22 and you have your life professionally in front of you, it's scary. And you feel like, if I fail at this, then what? But you have to also think that as an athlete, did you ever think that? Did you ever think, man, I'm not going to be good at this. I'm going to fail. And so for me, it was, I know I'm not going to fail because I'm not going to stop trying. And that was one of the things my mom used to always say to us. You guys, you never fail if you never stop trying. You might not be successful, but you're never going to fail. Just keep trying. And so for me, it was try as much as I possibly can while it wasn't a risk. So I did a lot of my preparation for my next career, which ultimately became broadcasting, some in business as well, as Kyle mentioned, but I did a lot of that preparation while I was playing. And so I had an understanding of what the industry was like, what the business side of it was like, the ups and downs of it. And it allowed me to step away from the game and step into media and feel confident that I understood the landscape. Because I worked at Fox News, I got really close with this correspondent. His name was Tony Snow, who has subsequently passed away, but he left Fox News to be President Bush's White House press secretary. And he got sick while he was in that job, but he didn't want to just sit around. So he started doing a radio show on Fox News Radio. And so he called me and was like, "Hey, Tiki, you want to come on like once a week and just talk about sports and politics?" And I was like, "Sure, that'd be awesome." And so I'd always just go on his show and like just talk about whatever current events were going on. And we developed a very close, although from afar, relationship. And then one day he says to me, "You know who I saw the other day? Condoleezza Rice. And she said she would love to meet you." And so I was like, "Dude, set it up. I absolutely want to set it up." And so I get a call from Secretary Rice's secretary, who said, "Are you available to come to lunch at the State Department on this day?" And like, count me in. And so me and my wife would go down there, and my manager, Mark, we go down and have lunch with Condoleezza Rice in the State Department. This is when the generals from Iraq are pushing back against Donald Rumsfeld. There is a trade summit going on with the Japanese prime minister, and in the middle of her schedule is like lunch with Tiki Barber. And so it was like, man, I'm like in the mix of like crazy world things, and it just started to become interesting to me. Like it was compelling in a way that sports is not, and because it means so much to really so many people. I mean, there's tons of football fans, obviously, in the United States, but there are tons of people in the world, 8 billion people in the world. And in some ways, I felt like I was getting into that little world, and it was exciting. Yeah. And so mentally and emotionally, I was like, man, I want to be a part of that. Like, I want to do that. I'd mentioned before when I was working on Fox News, we didn't talk sports on Fox News. It was all issues, political issues or state issues or things that were affecting everyday Americans' lives and the world, people in the world's lives. And I loved it because it was so different from what I was doing. And I decided that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get out of sports and get into media in whatever capacity I could find my lane in.
Constantly growing.
Have you had that experience since the Olympics?
No Condoleezza Rice, but definitely have met some interesting folk that I never thought I would. I was at a random party and I was hanging out with the COO of Apple, and I just thought, wow, this is unbelievable. Okay, now I'm learning.
Yes.
Right. Well, you know what I learned to do, Alex, was it's great to meet that person. It's better to stay in contact with that person. And yes. It's probably not going to be them specifically, but just to have like a connection in some capacity. And I do this with everybody now. These relationships helped make my career transition into the next career so much easier, because I mean, it is a cliche, but life truly is relationships. It's who you know, who you're connected with, and who can do you a favor should you need one. And they can help you if they become mentors, craft your next steps, because you have a lot of years to be a professional, a lot of years. Right? You're young. I mean, how old are you, Alex?
I'm 31.
Yeah, you're young. You're 20 years younger than me, man. You got a lot of years to be successful in something else if you are fully retired from freestyle skiing.
Alex, I'm going to give you kind of last hand here before we jump into the Tiki. We always do a little bit of rapid fire at the end. Just throw some questions at you, and you give us your best off the top.
I'm bad at rapid fire because I end up talking.
we're gonna hold you to it. We'll hold your feet to the fire. But Alex, any other questions you have just before we jump into that?
Yeah, I was just thinking, as an athlete, we're taking on so much risk most of the time. Has that influenced you in your business life? Are you risk adverse? Are you
good question.
liking risk?
Yeah, I'm not, because I think opportunities are greater than the potential risk. And so I've done a ton of different things. Hell, I was on Broadway. I was in a show called Kinky Boots on Broadway, where at the end of the show, I'm wearing these 6-inch stiletto, thigh-high, fire red boots and dancing on stage, belting out songs. And I didn't know if I was going to be good at that. I mean, I'm a lounge lizard. I love karaoke, but I didn't know if I was going to be good at that. But when I got the opportunity, I was like, absolutely. Like, why would I? Of course I'm going to do that. And I loved it. It was one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done because of the meaning of that show and how it's about acceptance, and you change the world when you stop looking at people, judging them from your perspective, and look at it from their perspective. It's not the perception, it's the perspective. That's individual. And so I've always been that way. Right when I left the game as well, I got into a business deal with Steve Ross of related companies, who also owns the Miami Dolphins. And it was opportunistic. He was looking to buy a portfolio based out of Roanoke, Virginia, affordable housing portfolio. And the owner of that portfolio was a guy named Hayward Fralin, who happened to be one of the board of trustees at the University of Virginia. And so I knew him because he was from my hometown. And so I helped purchase this portfolio with Steve Ross, and it set me into this business opportunity that just kind of happened because I had a good relationship with Steve Ross. And those type of connections that can lead to something very lucrative down the line have been why I always look at opportunities as it's going to be positive no matter what happens. And so for me, business is the same as life. Opportunities are going to come your way. You better be ready for it.
And it sounds like there's been good ones. Have there been bad ones as well?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that one ultimately turned out to be tough because the market corrected itself in 2008. So I started this in 2007. In 2008, 2009, as Kyle can attest, he knows, the world decided to, all right, we're done. We're not going to do it. We're going to correct this market. We're going to bring this down about 10%. And so in affordable housing, you buy properties with tax credit equity. And so at the time when we started, you could get like 97 cents on the dollar per credit. It turned out when we got the deal done, it was down to like 70 cents on the dollar. And because of the correction, the market instability and the uncertainty, nobody was lending debt either. So we couldn't finance these things on the equity side. We couldn't finance it on the debt side. And so this big portfolio that we had bought, and we ended up defaulting on. Now, fortunately, Steve Ross is super wealthy. So he let us out of that deal and then personally guaranteed it himself. So he ended up crushing it down the line. And but for us, it was bad timing. It was a tough business lesson, but it didn't stop me from continuing to do other things and starting another business, which was called Thuzio. I started it with Mark Gerson, who was the
I just ran into Mark the other night, Tiki.
Mark's the best man in the world.
He's great.
He's amazing. Great. I went to school with Mark's brother, Rick Gerson, at UVA. And so when I retired from the NFL, he was like, meet my brother. You guys will figure out something. So I didn't know Mark. And so we ended up like starting a business called Thusio, which was connecting athletes back into their communities, doing all kinds of different events. Unfortunately, it got like a bad rent an athlete moniker, like marketing thing, and it's not what we wanted, and ultimately we got challenged by COVID because we were doing live events and in-person events, and all of a sudden we couldn't do in-person events. But there's this great thing called Zoom, right, that helped us do a ton of virtual events. And so from doing 2 or 3 events per city, we were in about 6 cities per month. We were doing 2 or 3 a day. And so our margins fell, but our volume and total revenue grew significantly. And because of that, it made us attractive to a company that was looking to fill a void. I don't know if you know what Triller is, but Triller ended up purchasing us because we filled a void for them. Triller was very lumpy. They were doing these $70 million deals, these one-off boxing matches and things like that. But their revenue was like, hey, we're rich. No, we don't have anything. Hey, we're rich. And so they started acquiring a bunch of companies that would fill that revenue void and keep them more positive for a lot of the year. And it was a good deal for us. So it's like sometimes you look at these challenges that come in sports, you look at these challenges that come in business, but I always try to look at things as an opportunity. All right, what does this actually do for us, and what can we grow from this, even though it feels like it's not good on the outside.
All right, Tiki, we're gonna jump into rapid fire. This is where the real tea is gonna hit for our social media here. So be careful on your responses.
Right. Let's go.
Tiki Barber, best teammate that you've ever had.
My best teammate was Greg Camella because he was my fullback and he took all my hits.
That's what you need. That's the guy, the real fullback back in the day to take the big hits to open you up.
Right. They don't exist anymore. But this is why I'm excited about the Giants in 2026 because Patrick Ricard, who used to be in Baltimore with John Harbaugh, is now the Giants fullback. We have a fullback again.
Okay. I like that. I'm excited for the Giants this year as well. Hardest player, we talked a little bit about someone else earlier today. Hardest player you ever played against?
There were 2, but Brian Dawkins would take the cake because that's the one that people know. But it was actually the guy in front of him, Jeremiah Trotter. So Ray Lewis was a pain in the butt. Obviously, we played him in the Super Bowl. He beat my ass. But Jeremiah Trotter knew us so well because we played twice a year that he could guess what we were trying to do with our offense. And sometimes he'd guess wrong and I'd have a big play. But when he guessed right, it was pain, like serious pain. In fact, my last year when we played them, I didn't feel good for 4 days after that game. And so I'm going to say Jeremiah Trotter. He was my nemesis.
Okay. All right. For you throughout your sporting career, which spans young to the NFL, best coach that you've ever had?
I'm going to say it was George Welsh at the University of Virginia because I was in a circumstantial, obviously, because I was young. I wasn't fully developed frontal cortex, all that stuff. And he used to scream at me all the time. And in one time I got mad and screamed back at him and he kicked me off the field. And then we had a conversation a day or so later. And he said, Tiki, the only reason I'm yelling at you is because I think you could be better. And it like clicked for me after he'd said that. And all of a sudden, I went from this just regular college football athlete to the ACC Offensive Player of the Year to the ACC Player of the Year and got drafted in the second round. So he was a great coach, but it was really this odd way that he motivated or wanted to motivate you that made me into the player that I became.
And what was the tweak there? Was it more time spent on film? Was it more time in the weight room?
No,
all the above?
it was details. It was attention to the details, like the little things, like how you step. And so this helped me when I got into the NFL because I wasn't just a scatterbrained runner, like getting the ball and trying to find the hole. It was this play is designed to do this specifically. You have to do your part. And so I became a good college player because I was so detailed with all the little things, and that carried over into the NFL. Coach Coughlin emphasized all that stuff as well with the Giants. It's why I had some of my best years under him. Those last 3 years of my career were, I don't know, I think I had more yards rushing in those years than I did in the first 7. So I'm still going to say George because he got me when I needed it.
Amazing. Alex, turn it over to you.
My grandfather always said God is in the details, and I couldn't agree more. You got to really be watching out for everything so that you can go profoundly into it and extract everything possible out of it. So that's really interesting. But I was curious, turf or grass?
Definitely grass.
Okay.
Only because it hurts less.
Yeah.
And in the NFL, you're going to hit it, especially you're going to hit it a lot. Yeah. I didn't mind turf because I ran controlled. Like I wasn't an out of control runner that was like spreading my legs, getting my knees or ankles in compromising positions. And so if you're a runner like that or a player like that, turf is hugely detrimental to you. But I never minded turf, but I prefer grass because it's softer.
Makes perfect sense. I was always the same. Custom orthotics in the cleats?
Absolutely. And you know why? My feet are perfectly flat. And so if I don't have, the anatomy, because obviously an elite athlete, if your feet are flat, your knees turn in. And so you open that interior capsule of your medial capsule, and it's just ripe for injury. And so the only thing I ever consistently used was orthotics that would give me an arch, so that my knees would be correctly aligned. And more importantly, I stayed healthy. In football, almost everything you do is about staying healthy.
I guess we covered it all. Are there any takeaways? If you could give Alex one piece of advice as he's entering this next chapter, Tiki, would love for you to have the opportunity to do that.
The good thing about you, Alex, is that you have a good personality, and people sometimes don't realize how important that is, because you make people feel comfortable when you smile at them, right? And I always say smiles are contagious, because if someone smiles at you, unless you're in New York and like, what the hell are you smiling at? Right? they'll smile back at you, and it's contagious. And so how you introduce yourself and how you carry yourself is so important. The other thing is never assume that someone knows who you are. Like I am even in New York and in Jersey, I'm like, hey, I'm Tiki. Hey, I'm Tiki. I'm Tiki. Now, part of it's because I don't want them to think I'm Rondé, but I'm always like, hey, I'm Tiki. And it makes that connection when you're intentionally connecting to people.
Well, I super appreciate you giving me that advice, and I'm going to adhere to it.
I feel you do it anyways. I can tell. You're a good kid. I can tell.
Let's get that media track record. Let's get that media empire brewing, Alex. We talked about it offline. I think that's the next chapter for you. If in fact you're done skiing, which is unclear. Really appreciate you coming on. Alex, you were a great co-host. This is exactly what I wanted it to be, hashing out more details that people can learn from, but also kind of telling Tiki's story, which is incredible. And Alex, as you enter the next chapter, no better person to learn from than Tiki, who's pioneered that path into having a really successful media career. So appreciate you guys coming on.
Thank you, Kyle. Great to meet you, Alex. Hope to see you in person.